Hey everyone! Today, we're diving into one of William Faulkner's most challenging but rewarding novels, The Sound and the Fury. If you've ever been curious about this book but felt a little intimidated, don't worry, we're going to break it down so it's easy to understand. The Sound and the Fury was published in 1929, and it's considered one of Faulkner's masterpieces. But what makes this book so special? Well, it's not just the story, but how the story is told. Faulkner uses a unique narrative structure, which can be a bit tricky at first, but it's what gives the novel its power and depth. Let's start with a summary of the plot. The novel is centered around the Compson family, a Southern aristocratic family that has fallen into ruin. The story is divided into 4 parts, each with a different narrator, which gives us multiple perspectives on the family's decline. The first section is narrated by Benjy Compson, the youngest child. Benjy is 33 years old and has an intellectual disability. His narration is disjointed and non-linear, reflecting his inability to understand time and sequence like most people do. Through Benjy's eyes, we get glimpses of the Compson family's past, particularly his strong attachment to his sister, Caddy. Caddy is a central figure in the novel, and her eventual fall from grace is something that deeply affects the entire family. Benjy's section can be confusing because it jumps around in time without warning. We see scenes from his childhood, Caddy's wedding, and the present day, all mixed together. Despite the challenges in following Benjy's thoughts, this section gives us an emotional, fragmented view of the Compsons' world. The second part is narrated by Quentin Compson, Benjy's older brother. Quentin is a Harvard student, and his section is set on June 2, 1910, the day he decides to commit suicide. Quentin is obsessed with the idea of Southern honor and the shame that has befallen his family, especially through Caddy's actions. He's tormented by her promiscuity and his own inability to protect her. Quentin's thoughts are chaotic and filled with flashbacks, reflecting his mental disintegration. This section is filled with rich symbolism and intense emotions. Quentin's relationship with time is just as troubled as Benjy's, though in a different way. He's haunted by memories and unable to escape the past, which ultimately leads to his tragic end. The third part is narrated by Jason Compson, the youngest brother. Unlike Benjy and Quentin, Jason is practical, bitter, and angry. He's the family's primary breadwinner, but he's resentful of the burden he carries. Jason's section takes place in 1928, the same time as Benjy's, and it's much more straightforward in its narrative style. Jason's anger is largely directed at Caddy, who was disowned by the family after becoming pregnant out of wedlock. Jason has taken on the responsibility of raising Caddy's daughter, Miss Quentin, but he's cruel and manipulative toward her. Through Jason's eyes, we see the Compson family at its lowest point, financially ruined, emotionally broken, and filled with bitterness. The final section of the novel is narrated in the third person and focuses on Dilsey, the Compsons' loyal black servant. Dilsey has been with the family for years and has witnessed their decline firsthand. This section provides a more stable, objective view of the Compsons and serves as a contrast to the chaos of the previous narrations. Dilsey is a symbol of endurance and strength. While the Compson family falls apart, Dilsey remains a pillar of stability, taking care of Benjy and holding on to her faith. The novel ends with a sense of closure as we see the Compson family on Easter Sunday, a day of resurrection and renewal, though it's clear that their redemption is far from certain. Now that we've gone over the plot, let's talk about some of the key symbols in The Sound and the Fury. One of the most prominent symbols is time. The characters' relationships with time vary significantly. Benjy doesn't understand it, Quentin is haunted by it, and Jason is frustrated by it. Faulkner uses time to show how the past continuously influences the present, trapping the characters in cycles of memory and regret. Another important symbol is water. Quentin's obsession with water, especially rivers, is tied to his desire for purity and escape. His fixation on the Charles River in Boston, where he eventually drowns himself, represents his wish to cleanse himself and his family of shame. Caddy's muddy drawers in the first section are also symbolic. The image of young Caddy climbing a tree with her muddy underwear showing represents the loss of innocence. This moment foreshadows her future disgrace and the way her actions will stain the Compson family name. The Sound and the Fury is rich with themes that explore the human condition. One of the central themes is the decline of the Southern aristocracy. The Compsons, once a proud and respected family, are now on the brink of collapse. Faulkner uses their story to comment on the broader decline of Southern traditions and values in the face of modernity and change. Another major theme is the idea of memory and the past. The novel shows how the characters are trapped by their memories, unable to move forward. For Quentin, the past is something to be idealized and preserved, while for Jason, it's a source of bitterness and resentment. Faulkner illustrates how the past can haunt individuals and destroy their ability to live in the present. Identity and family are also significant themes. Each Compson sibling struggles with their identity in relation to their family. Benjy's identity is tied to his dependency, Quentin's to his obsession with honor, and Jason's to his role as the provider. Caddy, though not a narrator, is the emotional center of the novel, and her actions define the identities of her brothers. The Sound and the Fury is one of Faulkner's most important works and is often regarded as one of the greatest novels of the 20th century. It marked a significant moment in Faulkner's career, showcasing his willingness to experiment with narrative structure and his ability to delve deeply into the psychological complexities of his characters. Faulkner wrote The Sound and the Fury during a period of personal and financial struggle. At the time, he was still relatively unknown and was struggling to make a name for himself in the literary world. Despite these challenges, Faulkner was deeply committed to his craft, and his determination is evident in the novel's complexity and depth. The novel's innovative structure, which includes multiple narrators and a non-linear timeline, was groundbreaking. Faulkner's use of stream of consciousness and his exploration of fragmented memories were bold narrative choices that set him apart from his contemporaries. This novel demonstrated Faulkner's growing confidence as a writer and his willingness to push the boundaries of traditional storytelling. The Sound and the Fury was also significant in Faulkner's exploration of Yoknapatawpha County, a fictional setting based on his hometown of Oxford, Mississippi. Through the Compson family, Faulkner delved into themes of decay, loss, and the passage of time, recurring themes that would continue to resonate in his later works. Faulkner often spoke of The Sound and the Fury as a deeply personal novel. He once said that he wrote the novel from his own experience and emotions, particularly in the character of Quentin, who reflects Faulkner's own struggles with the changing South and his place within it. The novel's exploration of time, memory, and family dynamics would become hallmarks of Faulkner's writing. While The Sound and the Fury was not an immediate commercial success, it was later recognized as a seminal work in American literature. Its influence can be seen in the works of many later writers, and it remains a powerful example of Faulkner's literary genius. This quote reflects Quentin's obsession with time and his inability to escape the past. He's trapped in a cycle of memory and regret, and this line encapsulates his internal struggle between wanting to preserve time and wishing to forget it. Benjy's sensory memories of Caddy are central to his understanding of the world. This simple, repeated phrase symbolizes the purity and stability that Caddy represents to Benjy. As the only constant in his life, Caddy's scent of trees is a comforting memory for Benjy, even as everything else around him changes. This fragmented sentence from Quentin's narrative reflects his deteriorating mental state and his existential crisis. Quentin is struggling with his identity and his sense of self, particularly in relation to his family and the Southern ideals he feels pressured to uphold. Jason's cruel and dismissive attitude towards women, especially Caddy and her daughter Miss Quentin, is summed up in this harsh quote. It highlights his bitterness and misogyny, as well as his resentment towards the women in his family who he feels have wronged him. Dilsey's perspective as the Compson's servant and the novel's moral compass is captured in this quote. She has witnessed the rise and fall of the Compson family, and her endurance and faith stand in stark contrast to the family's decline. This quote underscores the theme of endurance and the passage of time, as seen through the eyes of someone who has lived through it all. The Sound and the Fury is a challenging novel, but it's also one of the most rewarding reads in American literature. Through its innovative narrative structure, rich symbolism, and deep exploration of themes like time, memory, and family, Faulkner creates a powerful portrait of a family and a society in decline. This novel solidified Faulkner's reputation as one of the greatest writers of the 20th century and continues to captivate readers with its emotional depth and literary brilliance. Thanks for joining me today. Until next time, keep reading and keep exploring.